Welcome, everyone, to another show of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. I'm your host, Ellen Nicholas Rathbone, and I am here today to talk to a very dear friend of mine about detoxifying or detoxification. My friend Elmitra Lundy is a person who lives her truth, and she has done detoxifying, and she's like the healthiest person I know. So I felt like it would be a really good conversation to speak with someone who actually walks the walk as well as talks the talk. So I'm going to bring her on for you to all meet her. And there she is, my lovely and wonderful friend, Elmitra. Now, you want me to call you Mitra or Elmitra? What do you want?
Metra is my stage name. And since we're on stage right now, you have to call me Metra.
Mitra, okay. I want to welcome you very, very much for joining me tonight. I admire you on so many levels. And, I want you to tell us all about yourself. And I want you to tell us about especially about detoxifying the body, why you think it's important, and we'll go from there. So tell us about you, Elmitra.
So let me just say thank you, Ellen, for inviting me on the show. I really think it's important for us to share our truths. And so for as long as I've known you, you've been concerned with health and wellness and finding love and happiness. And these are also the things that I think makes life what it's supposed to be, which is like joyful. And so thank you for having me on. By day or day to day, I am a fitness professional. So I own a fitness facility in Highland Park, New Jersey. And I'm right down the street from Rutgers. And I've been a business owner for over a decade at this point. And it's been a wonderful journey. I am also the author of the book, The Detox Life, because I've actually been detoxing since I was a teenager. My father got sick when I was quite young. Around 10 years old, he passed away. So I watched my mother try to heal him. And so really, I think my mom planted the bug for what it meant for us to for me to experience all different kinds of detoxifications, but we'll get into that, because I do think you have to be careful with the wording and be precise with what exactly you mean. I am also a producer. I completed a documentary that was released this past January called A Walk in Her Shoes. And that was an amazing journey where I walked in the footsteps of Harriet Tubman. So I simulated a walk from Maryland to Canada. First, for myself, I was going through a very difficult time, like we all do, and was trying to figure out how to get through that. And so Harriet Tubman had helped me to do that. So I have a documentary about that. And I'm just happy to be here and be talking with you about the subject of detoxification, which is so near and dear to my heart.
Right, right. So what kinds of detoxification are there? Is there more than one kind?
Well, absolutely. And I think you have to be careful with the language. Sometimes we get it all mixed up. When I talk about detoxification, it's much different than me having a conversation about fasting. So we say detoxification, we're talking about the removal of a toxin from the body, right? Or from our system. So as we're talking about ourselves. So we could be talking about detoxing from nicotine if you are a cigarette smoker. We could be talking about detoxing from chemicals like leads or ammonias. So we have to be careful about what chemicals we're talking about, because the body is quite smart at figuring out how to cleanse itself. And so, when we talk detoxification, we just be mindful of the wording. Fasting, on the other hand, when we talk about it as it relates to food, it's really what is happening physiologically with our body. So what happens when we don't consume a particular food or food altogether, or we just consume water in the periods of 3 to 5 hours? So what happens to our blood sugar glucose? What happens to our neurochemical ability? Are we able to have good attention or not have good attention? What's happening to our digestive system? What's happening with our circulatory system? So fasting and detoxification, I want to make sure that we are clear about what we're talking about and what I typically encourage folks to do. So broadly, I think human beings, we have this way about us that we like to overindulge. When something is good, we want to eat all of it. When something looks great, we want to look at it all the time. When something smells, we want all of it. And unlike any other animal or living creature, everything takes exactly what it needs. Dogs eat just enough, well, unless they've learned from us, and that's a different story. But if we think about trees, if we think about insects, they all have just the right amount of balance. And so when I talk to my clients about detoxification, or when I'm working with myself, it's usually me talking about the removal of something, not just food, something, someone, some situation for a period of time in which I am able to take a break and restart. So I'm somewhere in between what we know as detoxification and fasting. Like, I'm somewhere between that. Okay. Some of it has physiological effects, right? If I'm taking a break from sugar, for example, I'm going to feel a difference in how much energy I have, or where my attention span is. But I could also be detoxing from a person who might not be healthy for me, and that's going to have a neurological effect. And so finding that very special place right in the middle, where we're talking about taking a break from something for some period of time, sometimes related to food, sometimes related to our habits, is usually what I'm coaching my clients through, and what I support for every human being, to just take a break sometimes.
Right. Now, when do you think is the best time to start a detoxification, say, for cleaning your pipes, right? Because, our arteries are clogged up. We have a lot of our intestines clogged up. Like when in your life is it the best time to start? Do you think it's good for children? Is it teenagers, young adults? Like, when is the best time to do this?
Yep. So this is a really great question, because at a certain age, we have to get a colonoscopy, and we go to the doctor, and the first thing the doctor says is that you have to stay away from food. You've got to fast, and they have you take this medication, and then they go in there and they go probing. And this usually happens somewhere around in our 50s. Right. In my opinion, we should have been taking periodic breaks and encouraging the body to cleanse itself long before then. Okay. Again, I do think you have to be careful with how you approach refraining from anything, because children need a certain amount of vitamins and minerals, and you want to give them something that feels healthy and balanced. So if you have a well-functioning adult who is able to manage with a team of people, a child who might need some support, maybe the child needs to lose weight or something like that, then they might create a diet that is appropriate for that child, where it's more balanced and they're not overdoing with processed foods, and they're getting enough fiber, which is a kind of detoxification, right? So under those sort of controlled circumstances, then it would be appropriate for a child. There's a team, there's parents who care, and they've got support, and they know what they're doing.
Okay.
I do not think that children should try to craft their own detoxes, unless for some reason, again, that there's some situation that would call for it. But under normal circumstances, they usually aren't responsible enough or knowledgeable enough to understand what's going on with their bodies.
Right.
For us adults, though, this is different. So, by the time we turn, 20, mid-20s, and we're responsible for caring for ourselves, maybe we're away from the house and we're eating whatever we want, this is when some of the damage happens, because our parents They aren't looking at what we're eating. It's probably not balanced. We're probably eating too many processed foods, drinking too much alcohol, not sleeping enough, not giving the body a rest and encouraging it to use its natural abilities, which is to cleanse itself. I mean, the largest organ of the body is the skin. When you exercise, you actually are detoxifying the skin. But if you're not at home and your mother's not telling you, your father's not telling nobody, and you're responsible for yourself, there's usually a learning curve. Not for everybody. For some people, they have it naturally. So around mid-20s, when we're out on our own, until, in my opinion, taking breaks, whether we want to call it fasting or detoxing, taking breaks is really important for resetting the digestive system, giving the kidneys a break, giving the liver a break. And you have to be careful about how you approach it, because there is a right amount of time in which you should refrain from a particular thing. And it also matters what you're doing in your life. So if you're training for a marathon, well, then you don't want to abstain from food, right? Because you need the food to sustain you. So I think it depends on the conversation, but any healthy adult, mentally, physically, and emotionally healthy adult can empower themselves to take a break.
Okay, now, as far as the detoxification kinds of food, I mean, we all know how important water is. Water is essential. Mm-hmm. So, number one, how much water would you recommend? Mm-hmm. Is tea included in that fluid consumption? Mm-hmm. And are there a lot of greens that are liquefied to go into your system, or is it more of a clear liquid process, food intake?
Yep. So these are all really great questions. And I think the simple answer is that if you consume foods and beverages that encourage more liquid in your digestive system, if we're just talking about removal of waste, the more liquid you have going in, that's clear, that's not processed and full of sugars, right, the more likely it is that everything's going to move through your pipes, your large intestines, in a way that feels healthy. So right, more liquid. Now, whether it's drinking water or drinking green tea, this is two different conversations. Now, in general, in terms of just drinking water, the recommendation is half your body weight in ounces. So if I'm 140 pounds, then I want to be consuming 70 ounces of water. Right. And I have some people say, well, what if it's coffee? Well, coffee doesn't work because caffeine has a way of dehydrating the body, not hydrating. So right, you got to be careful. If the tea is caffeinated, you run the same risk. Right. Green teas, though, they have antioxidants in it, which actually help to detoxify. So I think you have to be careful which conversation you're having. Right. In general, you want your urine to be clear to pale yellow. So if that's happening and there's no scent, well, then you're doing something right. Okay. Foods that are going to be high in water, like vegetables, your celeries, your cucumbers, your zucchinis, your melons. I mean, all of these are going to be good for the digestive system, and add a certain amount of water into the GI tract and help do what it is you're trying to do, which is hydrate everything. And you know, that's basically it. So you could do it with a mix of food and water. Okay. But you have to be careful with caffeinated, sugary drinks.
How often would you recommend that, say, the average person detox? I mean, is it once a month, once a week, once every 6 months? What do you think?
Yep. So I'm going to take us back to habits. New Year's happens and everybody's on the get right. I got my New Year's resolution. I am doing it. They usually don't start the first week because, they went out the day before New Year's. And so that didn't work. So it usually takes a week to 2 weeks to actually implement. Okay. Then once it's implemented, it's usually good for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
And then after that, life happens and whatever happens.
Right.
So I like to think about this stuff like habits. If I can adopt a new habit for 30 to 90 days, then I got that amount of time where I'm going to have a colon that's happy because it's got enough fiber and it's got enough water and it's got the right balance. My kidneys are happy and I'm exercising. So I'm removing sweat that's helping me to detoxify my skin. So everything works out really well if we could keep the habit for 60 to 90 days. Usually after 90 days, it's a little slippery slope. The holidays happen. There's a change in the season where, when it gets colder outside, we want to be inside. So then we're eating more.
Right.
So my recommendation is typically every change in the season or every 90 days to make some change, make an adjustment. Because you'll need an adjustment because your behaviors are going to change.
Very, very good point.
Yeah.
What do you think about detoxifying, or do you consider it detoxifying if a person sits, say, in a sauna, in a steam room, in a whirlpool, and their body is caused to sweat profusely? Is that a form of detoxification in your mind?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So the body has the skin to help cleanse itself and remove harmful toxins, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about detoxification. So definitely going into a sauna is going to help that process to happen, but also drinking water is a kind of detoxing for the kidneys. The liver is responsible for detoxing. So the body is a beautiful orchestra that works together, that it's able to do all the things. And we want to eat and drink and have habits that encourage the body to do what it's supposed to do. And when we don't do that, we don't sleep enough, or we eat too many processed foods, or we don't drink water, or we don't go to the doctors to figure out if we've got X, Y, and Z, but then we get in the way of the body's natural ability to take care of itself.
Right, right. Now, I would like you to tell me what an average day of detoxification would look like for you. Like, what would you have in the morning? What would you have for lunch? What would you have for dinner? That sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest with you and your audience and admit that I've tried just about everything. So I've tried not eating at all for some period of time. I have tried liquids only, water only. I've tried the lemonade diet where it's, water, lemon, cayenne, and honey. I have tried raw food detoxification. So I've tried a bunch of things. I'm going to say that it really depends on what the outcome is that I'm looking for. For me, the kindest detoxification, or the kindest fast physically, is usually juicing, because I can still get calories, which means I can function, my brain can function, I can still exercise, but I'm giving my body a break, my digestive system a break, so that it could, so my body could work on other things, repairing whatever other things might be off. So I prefer juice fasts for usually 7 days is the minimum amount that I will do, because it takes about 7 days for your GI tract to fall in line. The first day you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't, have a bowel movement. And then the third day you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? I'm eating all these vegetables, or I'm drinking all of this liquid. Seems like I should be going. And for myself and for clients I've worked with, there's usually a little delay while your body figures out what's going on. So minimally 7 days, 21 days is very sweet in terms of feeling the airiness that comes from any fast or detox. So in the first 3 days, I usually start on a weekend because I'm grumpy. I am tired. I'm coming off of all the stuff that I was feeding myself. Coffee, maybe sugar, maybe carbs, right? Like I'm coming off. So you feel that. So anybody going into any sort of detox or fast, just like if you were coming off of any substance, alcohol or drugs, it has a physiological effect. Food is the same way.
Yeah.
So you need a solid 3 days of just like nurture, rest, recover. And then you watch your body start to shift. You watch your energy shift. You watch your body figure out how to work differently. I just watched a wonderful clip on, it was a TED talk about the power of intermittent fasting and how the reason why intermittent fasting is so great for as an anti-aging tool is because it makes our brain have to work a little harder to figure out how to function. And that's actually good. If we get everything, then the body becomes lazy. It's like, I don't need to work hard. The body doesn't want to do more than it has to do. So we give it a little something, a little zap that says, nope, wake up, we got to go. So that's what a fast or a detox will do for you. And I use those overlapping. But the person who wants to do a fast or a detox should be very clear about the outcome. Am I doing this because I want to change the scale? If that is the case, then you have to be very clear that this is a temporary solution. This is not a lifestyle that you're going to have not eating or not, like this is not it.
Right.
If your objective is to go into surgery in a certain way. I've had work with a lot of clients who have had bariatric surgery where, the 2 weeks before their surgery, they can only have liquids. So this is like a very real thing. So anybody who's contemplating fasting or detoxification should really work with somebody who has done them successfully and guided them successfully so that they have a successful experience.
Right.
Yeah.
How long does the effects or the positive effects of a good detoxification last? So let's say you've detoxified for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. How long of a time after that does it take before you start getting sluggish again? In other words, things start to get backed up once again because now you're feeding yourself all the regular stuff.
Yep. I think it really depends on what we're talking about. So if we're talking about coffee, so for me, this is one of the things that I have to frequently bring myself off of. So if I am fasting, I come off a fast, I've done 3 weeks, I feel amazing. My first week, I'm usually like pretty good. I don't need it. 2 weeks, I'm pretty good. But then life happens. It usually has nothing to do with my body craving the thing, but I'm out. It's a social environment. Everybody's drinking coffee. So then I'm going to have coffee.
Right.
That reminder stays on the tongue. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, you're back at it. So usually, and again, it depends on what you're consuming. If we're talking about the gut, then of course you have a little more time. If you're like, oh, I lost 5 pounds, well, you're not going to gain 5 pounds back right away unless you had a whole lot of alcohol and a whole lot of salt. Then your body's like, retain it all, right? So it really just depends. A good detox, if you are a diligent person, if you're consistent, if you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to hold on to all the good habits for as long as I can, could last you for 30 to 90 days. Nice. Up until the time that you need to do it again. And like 1 or 2 things might slip. It doesn't usually all slip.
Okay.
If you want to keep it, I think it depends on why you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Is there any downside to detoxification, or is there anything that one would consider harmful to detoxifying?
Sure, there is. I know when I first started detoxing, I would have to have a conversation with my whole house. I'd say, listen, a month in advance, this is what's about to happen, because I know how I'm going to react. Yeah. This little thing is going to get on my nerves. I'm biting everybody's head, and it's not me. It's the
course
small
not.
period of time that happens where I'm taken over by an alien for just a small period of time. And then I come back. So in terms of that, I have seen people whose family was not supportive and was not willing to wait that period of time. And so, arguments and fights and people not happy. So in that way, harmful could be. If a person is not healthy emotionally,
Right.
mentally, the sense of control that you get over yourself, I've seen this play out. You do feel really good physically, but also if you're not careful, you could mix up controlling your diet in this way with and I'm not a mental health professional, but I believe it has to do with control. It can get out of control. You could go to a mental state where you think this is the only way you should live, and so you have to do it all the time, or it becomes the solution to all of the other problems that have nothing to do with healthy reasons for you to detox. So I think in that way, again, only healthy individuals, mentally, physically, emotionally, not suffering from any mental illness, or you're under the care of a dietitian, a nutritionist, a specialist in detoxification, that they can support you and help you. You should also, if you have a team, you should let your doctor know what's going on.
Right.
So then everybody is clear, and you could be warned if there's any sort of danger.
Okay. And that danger might include you.
Well, there have been moments where I'm like,
Now, let me ask, are there any herbs in particular that you think should be included in a good detox?
The number one herb that I encourage is turmeric.
Okay.
Because it's anti-inflammatory. So you start removing the bad things, your body's all puffy, your mind's all puffy, everything feels just not great. This is a great herb or spice. I usually use it as a spice to help with inflammation. But there are other things. So blueberries are great at detoxifying. All the dark, colorful fruits and vegetables. Usually I like to encourage those to be in a liquid form.
Right.
Good for the GI tract. It gives you the nutrients. You don't feel like you want to bite somebody's neck off. It's good for everyone. All parties involved.
Okay. Well, now I want you to tell everybody the name of your studio, because you did say that you do own a studio, but you didn't say the name. And I think you said you have a book, and I'd like everyone to be able to see the book and let us know where we can get it, because I think it's very valuable information. And we're all about uplifting the human condition. We're about getting healthy in a good and natural way. And, fitness is one component of that. Diet, most definitely another component of that. So tell us about your studio and tell us about your book.
Yes. So my studio is Kinetics Personal Training and Group Fitness, and we are in Highland Park. We've been in business at this point for about 12 years.
Nice.
And it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. We have a wonderful community of people who really care about longevity. This is not a place that you're going to come and just hop on a treadmill. This is like, you want to know how to really transform your body, your mind, your emotional state by movement and the folks you're around. This is what this community is all about. And, I would be dishonest if I said that it was all me. It's definitely not. It's the teachers who are there, the trainers who are there, the kind of clientele that's just drawn to the energy, like attracts like. And so We're in Highland Park. Again, the facility name is called Kinetics, and I'm proud to have owned it for the last 12 years. But I got a wonderful team of people and community. I do have a book. This is the name of my book. It's called The Detox Life. And I talk about food. I talk about exercise. I talk about people. I talk about, there's a process in here called dry brushing, which helps to improve the skin circulation, helps with connective tissue, helps with just making the skin look more toned and healthy. And so this has been my life since my father passed when I was a kid. The universe has been giving me little jewels for managing myself. And I've had the ability to test it out on a bunch of people along the way and figure out what works. And so the Detox Life can be purchased on Amazon. And then lastly, I have a documentary that's out. It's called A Walk in Her Shoes. And that could be purchased on Amazon, on iTunes, at any local, online store. So Target, Best Buy. And folks can find me at metralundy.com.
I want to thank you so incredibly much for being part of this conversation, a very important part, obviously, and for sharing your wisdom, your passion, your knowledge, your enthusiasm. You're always all of that. And it's always such a great pleasure to see you and to talk to you. I'm so glad that we've met and that I know you. And I'm just really happy that I don't get to see you as often as I would like to, but, life is busy. And so I'm just really happy that you made time to be part of this conversation. I want to thank you so much, Metra. You're just the best. You really are.
Ellen, you get all the hugs, you and your audience, all the hugs. I'm happy to be here.
All right. I wish you all the very best. I am going to buy the book because I definitely, absolutely. And I'm going to bring it to work with me and put it in people's faces. Because a lot of people don't understand how clogged up they are. And I think this would be a very, very good thing for them. Awesome. So thank you so much for being here this evening. And I look forward to speaking with you again. And just wishing you all the best. Okay.
All the best.
All right, honey. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. That was a phenomenal discussion. Metra is just full of wonderful information. I hope you benefited from this conversation. Check out her book. Check out her studio if you live anywhere near Highland Park, New Jersey. And next week, the conversation is going to be on Reiki. So if you would like to be part of that conversation, please join me at that time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please share this video with anyone that you believe would benefit from it, and like the program, because Facebook will not allow me to advertise me because I have pleasure in my title. So that must mean that I'm, sinful. So I don't think this was sinful. I think this was great. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again next week for another wonderful episode of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. This is your host, Ellen Nicholas Rathbone. Namaste, everybody. Do your Kegels and get a little bit of fasting and detox in there too.